Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Inga Cotton. I'm the founder and executive director of San Antonio Charter Moms, and these are Charter Moms Chats, where we go live and talk to experts about information that families need to make sure their kids are getting a great education. And this month, we've been featuring enrichment activities that families can do kind of on evenings or weekends to kind of fulfill the special interests that their kids have, and also like help kids get reconnected and get excited about learning again, because the pandemic created so many disruptions, and a lot of us stayed home for a while, and it's time to kind of reconnect and explore our interests. So we've covered topics like STEM education and arts, and this week we have a new post on the site about outdoor activities and those enrichment programs. And so if you click on the description of the video, it'll take you to the blog post, and I encourage everybody to read it. But we're really lucky today to get to talk to some of the experts interviewed in the blog post. So let me introduce who's on our team today. So Carrie Kimball is the CEO of First Tee Greater San Antonio, and they're a nonprofit that helps kids get excited about golf. And then we also have David Jimenez, who's the education coordinator at Phil Hardberger Park, which is one of the great parks in San Antonio on the north side. And then we also have Alex Bailey, who's the founder and executive director of Black Outside Inc., who helps children of color to explore the outdoors where they've been historically underrepresented. So I'm really excited to have all of you here to share about ideas for families who want to get their kids outdoors and enjoy these enrichment activities. So thanks for being here.
Thanks, Inga.
Okay, so first question I'm going to send over to Carrie. So maybe for folks who haven't heard of First Tee, can you explain like the mission and vision?
Sure. Thanks, Inga. Thank you for having me. The mission and vision of First Tee Greater San Antonio is to youth development organization that builds character, life skills, and confidence in kids through the great game of golf. I've been the CEO since January of 20, so started right before COVID. But the good news about golf is it was a relatively safe, it was socially distant anyway, almost, but then adding some extra safety measures has been very beneficial for First Tee as well.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Carrie. Okay, so let me ask David if he could kind of explain mission and vision of Phil Hardberger Park, but and your slice of it, which is the education part.
Sure. So thanks for having me. I'm kind of at a interesting crossroads. I'm a city employee, so we have our city parks and recreation mission. And then we're a special designation park of a natural area, so it has another mission. And then I also work very closely with the Phil Hardberger Park Conservancy, and they're a nonprofit, and they fund almost all of our programs. So that's the mission that I'm going to read for y'all. So by preserving Phil Hardberger Park and its natural history, we inspire learning and create connections and engagement for enhanced well-being for all. And a big part of the city's goal is just to connect people with nature and provide high quality spaces and experiences.
Thank you, David. Okay, so now Alex's turn. Alex, can you explain mission and vision of Black Outside?
Yes, of course. I'm always fascinated by StreamYard, the in and out. I feel like I'm on like CNN or ESPN. So really cool.
Good debut.
Yeah, right. My name is Alex Bailey, and I'm the proud executive director of Black Outside Inc., where our mission is to connect Black youth to the outdoors and nature spaces. We were founded in 2019, where I always joke that we're a toddler nonprofit. We've served over 400 youth from around the state of Texas and even around the country through our summer camp. The big thing with us that I would say is that we're kind of a unique program in the way we're structured. We're not like, your traditional Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, where we have a cohort of kids. We actually have 3 programs that we run, one of which is a summer camp for girls. It's America's first historically Black summer camp for girls, Camp Founder Girls. We have a year-round program for youth impacted by incarceration called the Charles Rumsey Bloom Project. And then we have a boys mentorship program in collaboration with a few local nonprofits called Brothers with the Land that really focuses on healing spaces for high school Black boys. So we do that all obviously in the setting of pretty awesome spaces around Texas, and then collaboration with so many amazing community folks here in San Antonio.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. So I think from talking to this group, you could tell there's lots of programs in San Antonio to help kids get outside and interact with nature and with sports. But I want to throw this question out to all of y'all. that as I was researching, like all of these programs help students gain not just learning to play golf or learning like how to pitch a tent, or learning to plant a garden, but it teaches like life skills and sort of self knowledge that they can apply in school and when they grow up. So I was wondering if y'all could kind of comment on those, like what are those like added benefits that students learn from engaging in the programs and the outdoor activities. So I'll send it to Carrie first.
Yes. So as I mentioned, golf has been very instrumental during the pandemic. And I think our programs, especially, we serve children from age 5 to 18. And we have different levels of programs. And what we do is if anyone's played golf before, sometimes you hit a best shot and you get a bad bounce, or you hit a great shot or a good shot and get a bad bounce, and a great shot or bad shot and get an amazing bounce. And so that's kind of like the parallels of life. And I think that during the pandemic, especially, teaching kids how to cope with, the difficulties that people faced, the last 2.5 years, and let alone, and how we can go forward from that. And like, you can get through it. And, we teach 9 core values. We start, every lesson has, one of the core values with it. So we weave that in through purposeful play, we say, through golf. So whatever the lesson for golf is that day, we weave in the word, and we just kind of try to reiterate those words. And as they go through our program, as they get older, we apply those 9 core values more with goal setting, mentorship, giving back to the community. And so as they get older and reach their high school years, they're more becoming members of society and learning how to integrate with that in our organization. So really just trying to give them the tools that they need to face whatever challenges come their way or life experiences that they have.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna send that question to David next. Talking about like sort of the self knowledge and life skills that kids could get from, working outside.
Sure. So here at Harburger, we have a plethora of programs ranging from nature classes for kiddos as young as 18 months through programs for adults and seniors. But I know you highlighted our children's vegetable garden, which is one of my favorite programs here at the park. We had our orientation this morning, and it's a really great program. It does help kids by just getting them outside and giving the opportunity of new experiences. Gardening is a life skill that you can use the rest of your life, whether it's just a flower bed or you're going to try to grow your own produce. There's introductory skills that are introduced, but also just the challenges of, well, it was really hot this month, so half of your plants died, and what are you going to do about it? And other times where it rains a whole bunch, and now there's mushrooms growing everywhere, and there's all these bugs eating your squash. So it provides an opportunity for challenges. We also include a lesson with our children's vegetable, and it's every Tuesday that we meet at the garden. And we have a 10 to 15 minute lesson on something related to gardening or nature or here at the park. So we've talked about the wildlife that they may encounter. We've talked about pests and how to control them. We've talked about sort of ethnobotany and foraging, all kind of tying it back into the little bit of time that we have the kids outside in our park, and to try to make the most of it.
Yeah, wow, that's fascinating. Okay, so Alex, your turn. So if you could comment on sort of the self-knowledge and the skills that the students can get from participating in programs of Black Outside.
Yeah, and it's great hearing y'all's perspective on this. I think it's really awesome because we're all coming at it from different angles. So I'm going to answer this in kind of a different way. I was actually a high school educator. I was a high school teacher for 5 years, and then an instructional leadership coach for 3 years. So I've seen a bunch of schools. Not that I'm an expert, but I've seen a healthy amount of schools, and it's interesting that when Black Outside was started, it was like a year before the pandemic. A lot of the youth that were coming to us were in schools that were pretty structured, or almost, in my opinion, a little overstructured, right, of the day. And not that overstructure is bad, but like it was just a lot of structure, a lot of especially some of our kids that were coming in from highly structured like charter schools, where every minute of their day was planned out. So for them, the activities that they did and coming to us was really a freeing space just to be like, cultivate a lot of that curiosity. We really believe in unstructured time for youth outdoors. So yes, we have like obviously set programming we do, but within that we build in, if we're camping 2 to 3 hours of unstructured time where they can kind of explore a certain area safely. So with the pandemic, it's kind of shifted, right? As y'all know, and I'm sure so many caregivers know, kids are now like, during the pandemic, it's like log on Zoom, what's happening? It was a lot of unstructured. So what was interesting for us is kind of bringing it back to the middle of nature was really powerful for our kids to have a set space where they can really cultivate that curiosity and get hands-on with other youth and other adults and other people and cultivate those human connections that we all know are super valuable for our youth. So I think the last thing to say is we really try to cultivate, some of the C's that you hear about, your collaboration, your curiosity, right, your communication skills. But obviously doing that in the setting of nature programming. And I think that really, really cultivates a lot of long-term skills that the classroom can set up the foundation for. I think nature really enhances.
Yeah. Well, I want to kind of echo, like, I hear some, like Alex said, like there's, coming from different perspectives, but there's overlap. So what I heard from Carrie was that golf is this way to teach core values and that you could incorporate that into the golf lessons. And then, David talked about how planting a vegetable garden, nature is always unpredictable and there's always going to be challenges, but it's something that if you're consistent with it and, coming every week and learning about a new aspect, like you can build up a lot of knowledge over time and learn that the good things take consistent effort. And same thing with golf, right? You have to keep practicing. And Alex, that was an interesting contrast you made between like school settings where it can be very structured, and then but like a life skill is learning what to do with unstructured time, right? How to create structure in your time. And sometimes kids who lived in a very structured environment all the time, they're presented with unstructured time and they're like, now what? Right? And then they just play with their phone, right?
Yeah.
So then like easing into like learning how to manage unstructured time is a really important life skill, and when to get away from the computer, right?
Yes, for sure.
Okay, so I want to like kind of focus in on each program in particular. So I'll let's see. So let me go to Carrie, and then I want to ask you about like so you mentioned it's for ages 5 up to 18. So if you can describe like what are some of the experiences that children can have when they're participating in First Tee?
We have our main location, which is on Mulberry near Breckenridge Park by the zoo. And then we have 8 other locations throughout San Antonio. So if there's one that's more convenient to your house, you're certainly welcome to go there. We built really a great community. Kids love coming there. Our older kids absolutely love it. We have a speaker series where we bring in local leaders that can speak to them about the lesson for the day. Instead of us teaching it, the leaders teach it through their own experiences, and then they're able to engage with these folks. And the idea behind it is that we're introducing local leaders to our kids who are getting the education, core values, and life experiences, how to deal with challenges, whatever comes their way. And then it introduces them to maybe new careers they didn't think of. We've had technology and astronaut, we've had some sports, figures in the area. So it's just really neat to see how these kids, when we started that program, it's called For Your Future, how we were almost planning questions in the class before so they could feel confident to ask the questions. And now we don't have to do that. And they're excited. Their parents are coming. It's been really amazing to see them come out of their shell and be confident to ask these questions to these people and have these people react with them. And, if they have a LinkedIn, I'm telling them, share with LinkedIn so that you're connected. It's just making these connections. I'm really big on that. We have our younger kids who are just excited getting into golf. They're outside, they're away from screens. Golf is a lifelong sport, right? Like gardening, David, right? So, I tell our kids, I said, you can play football, you can do all that. I encourage you to play everything and anything you can. But I really want kids to play golf because you can play it for the rest of your life. The relationships you can make, the opportunities that it presents, the networking behind it, the places you can travel the world and play golf. And so really just instilling them with not only what the game provides from a sport perspective, but from a life perspective, it's impacted my life. And I'm just grateful that I get to give that back to the youth of San Antonio. And our program is open for all. No one's turned away for financial need. So we welcome all.
That's wonderful. Okay, so now I'll put David on deck. David, I was wondering if you could talk about some of the activities you mentioned, the children's vegetable garden. But like, what are some of like the experiences that kids get while they're trying to help their garden thrive?
Sure. On Tuesdays, we give about a 2 hour window for kids and their families to be in the garden. We have a demonstration at the start of each lesson so the kids learn about which plants or seeds they're going to be planting that day. They learn how to pull weeds, they learn how to fertilize, they learn how to squish bad bugs and how to foster good bugs. And then after that, we kind of break them up into groups, and half of them will go to our sort of classroom area and we'll do the weekly lesson about a semi-related topic, while the other half is getting their garden time, and then they'll switch. Uh, they'll have they're actually going to start next Tuesday by pulling all the grass and weeds out of the beds that have been sitting dry and empty for the whole summer, and recently got all this water. And it's just they start from scratch. They start with seeds and then a few seedlings, and they have to set up a trellis. They have to water the plants themselves. It's great to see the kids as their eyes are opened to just the process of how things grow, the process of how they can be in touch with nature, even on a small scale. The garden beds aren't huge, but it can be a lot for some kiddos. But by the end of the season, just being able to take home produce that they've made themselves, learning about, well, this plant is related to this other plant that grows wild in the park, and kind of making those connections. Well, this insect is bad for my garden, but important for the rest of the ecosystem, and things like that, and protecting their plants from squirrels and deer and all these other things too. It's just a whole bunch of things that they kind of learn and experience throughout the season. And then once December comes around, it's time to pull up the rest of the plants and make the bed ready for the spring season.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that I feel like we could like cross post this into the STEM blog post because they're learning a lot about biology. They're learning a lot about nature while they're at it. Okay. Well, let me put Alex on top again. Alex, can you talk about some of the activities that the kids get to do when they're? You mentioned that y'all manage multiple programs, but I'm sure there's some common threads, right? Like maybe going hiking or camping or canoeing or sort of things that are very different from city life.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. We really try to hold the balance of doing really unpacking what the outdoors means and what outside means, right? Carrie, I love what you said about like golf is a connection to nature, right? And that's one of the things that sometimes with like funders, like we're nonprofit leaders, right? Funders and just other folks, stakeholders that are invested in the work that we do are the greater outdoors that we really have to push the discussion on, especially in our amazing city of San Antonio. And so I said to say, our kids do local stuff. They've done community gardening. They've kayaked the San Antonio River. They've hiked at Friedrich Wilderness Park, and they've also hiked at Comanche Lookout Park, and hiked around Brackenridge Park, right? So we participate in those activities through some of our programs. Our kids had summer camp at Morgan's Wonderland Summer Camp, awesome facility. A big shout out to them. And our kids, like literally 3 weeks ago, were backpacking in the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, and they've backpacked in Big Bend, and they've been up to near Palo Duro Canyon. And so what we really try to do is emphasize to our kids that nature isn't one thing. There's multiple entry points, right? Our kids have gone places and played basketball outside. In a couple months, they're getting ready to do like a barbecuing event outdoors. And we're like, that is a form of connecting with nature. It doesn't always have to be, you got to go an hour outside and do this Bear Grylls experience where like you're super hungry, you don't have service, right? And it's an adventure, right? You can also be like sitting outside listening to music or doing yoga at MLK Park, which we've done. So I shared to say we really have a full range of activities, and we really believe the outdoors starts when a kid walks outside of their house. And in the activities from that, we really try to build a diversity of. So I think it's really powerful for many of our youth that have been with us for multiple years that they can say they've like been bouldering, and they've also backpacked, and they've also kayaked the San Antonio River and all those things. So that's really a value for us, is really ensuring that the outdoors is a diverse place, like from a people perspective, but also from an activity perspective.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's really ambitious. That going that far, but that's great. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of kids that aren't getting the access to those experiences. So that's part of what I'm trying to do. Through, let's say, Charter Moms, like through our platform, is like highlight that there are these programs. It doesn't have to be intimidating. That there's organizations like the Phil Hardberger Park Conservancy, like First Tee, like Black Outside, that like, so if there's parents who feel like they want this for their kids but don't know where to start, like, there's organizations that are ready to help, and that's what we're trying to show through the blog post. Okay, well, I want to get like, so I love storytelling, so I asked Jill to kind of prepare like examples of like particular students or children who maybe like said something surprising or shared feedback. So let me send it to Carrie first. Like, can you share like a story or two about maybe like you've observed or heard about kids who participated in First Tee and had it really impact them?
Yes. So last summer, we have summer camps that are 5 days a week during the summer. And we had a kid named Zayden, and he would come with his grandmother, and he had a watch that could call his grandmother. And within an hour, it was a 3-hour camp. And within an hour, he's always calling the grandmother, and the grandmother's coming, or he was very distracted and running around. And so the grandmother would always come like at the hour. And we sat with her and we said, keep him, like leave him here, like don't answer, like take the watch, don't answer the call. I think he was a little intimidated, didn't know many kids. And so Vinny, our program ambassador, kind of took him under his wing, and he ended up coming every week after that. He joined our First Tee programming in the fall and the spring, and he was honored with a core value award at our luncheon in May. And his behavior wasn't the best at the beginning of the camp. And just, our staff and our coaches just kind of wrapped their arms around him and pulled him back in. And we gave him a free set of golf clubs. Like, he was beaming, and he showed up to our luncheon in a tuxedo and was just so proud. And it's just, the stories like that are just what's super impactful and heartwarming, that these kids are being introduced to the game, but then they're also, we see as adults more what's happening on the backside versus the joy of him hitting a golf ball well, or, getting new clubs. Right. So that's what's just been really great.
Well, as the mom of a boy who, sometimes did not meet behavior expectations, I was always grateful for the programs that showed extra patience to him and make sure that he felt included. Because like when there were those spaces where he felt included, that had a really big impact on him. So I think it's a real testament to, how you guys are able to treat students and what the culture is among your people. Because, there's parents like me or like Zane's grandma who are like trying to help and trying to figure out the right thing. And we're just trying to find places, because we don't want to just, have them be feral, right? We want to socialize them somehow, and we need help. And, parents can't do everything. But it's important to find those allies that treat kids well. So
it takes a village. It takes a village.
It really does. Okay. Well, let me, David, can you share maybe a story or two about like, maybe kids who've been through the Children's Vegetable Garden and what their takeaways were?
Sure. Well, I wanted to touch on, so I do work for the city of San Antonio, the Parks and Rec, and it's a massive department. And I've had the privilege of working on both the recreation side and now the park side. And on the recreation side, we've got over 20 community centers and open play centers where we have sports leagues, and kids have that opportunity to learn teamwork and build those skill sets. But also just all kinds of programming is offered at those locations. And there's a lot of overlap with what I do now. So a lot of my children's nature programming, and especially our children's vegetable garden, because there are opportunities for children to be engaged in a semi-regular fashion. I've got kiddos that come to my nature classes, and I see them for maybe an hour and a half once a month. But they come back each month, and now I've been at this park for a year now. And so every time they're like, hey, Mr. David, are we going to look at birds again today? Are we going to look at this bug, or what are we going to look at? And they're little 5-year-olds, and they remember my name. And it makes me feel great. But just seeing them so excited about learning and experiencing nature. And we take pretty much the same route on our nature walk, but we always find something different, whether it's a spider web or seed pods or what have you. And we've had families with our children's vegetable garden that have participated for a number of years now. And so the older child has aged out. It's from 5 years old to 14 years old. But the younger siblings come in and they're like, I remember when so-and-so brought home tomatoes, and I want to grow tomatoes now. And just having that familiarity helps give the kids confidence and helps them feel more connected to the spaces and programs that we offer.
Yeah, well, that's a good reminder. There's definitely like teachers and school leaders in our audience, and I think that they've all gotten a sense. Well, like Carrie mentioned that golf is something that you could keep doing during the pandemic, and I think outdoor learning, was a way to during the pandemic, and as it continues, like it's a way to keep kids engaged, and and nature is always changing. So like with the seasons, like you'll always find a different flower blooming, or a different spider making its webs or laying eggs. There's always something, and it's a cycle that repeats, but it with lots of different variations. So, well, let me ask Alex. And yeah, as a former educator, I'm sure. Well, former school educator, you're still an educator, but that, yeah, like kids can learn so much from being outdoors and seeing all the variety that's in nature. So, can you share some stories about the impacts on kids who participate in Black Outside programs?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, first to kind of give framing for the story on its tell, I think it's important to just acknowledge and uplift that, unfortunately, many youth of color and especially Black youth are just like told that like the outdoors isn't a space for them, which is ironic because, there's this like huge legacy and history of Black people doing amazing things in the outdoors. And even when we think about, Dr. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, literally the last whole part of that speech is him talking about the outdoors. He's talking about mountaintops, he's talking about rivers. A quick side fun fact is he actually wrote that speech in the outdoors from one like as at the end of a fishing experience. Was one of
Wow.
the Black guides in the whole country, and the guide actually passed away right after that speech. It's a pretty powerful story if you look it up. So
Wow.
we have this deep connection to the outdoors, right? But unfortunately, if you look at representation, you look at media, I mean, we can be honest. Like if you go on social media, look at some of your top brands and go through their feed, sometimes you don't see as equitable representation. There's some brands that are really great at it, some that aren't. So I share all that to say, socially, sometimes within communities, sometimes they're getting messages, even from schools, that like the outdoors isn't a place for you. Like you're in the classroom, you need to go to this, like do these things, right? And so for our kids, we really try to disrupt that narrative. One, through obviously diversity, our leadership, and then two, yeah, just exposing the outdoors and say it's a human experience. Every kid deserves to get to experience a vegetable garden, gets to experience golf, and just gets to experience like setting up their first tent. And so one of the more powerful experiences for me was actually a young woman who started off at her summer camp our first year. She's been with us for like 4 years, and she reluctantly signed up for a Rocky Mountain, Colorado backpacking trip. And I was like, really? I was really surprised when she showed up to the first call and her application came in. And so as we're literally 4 miles on this like pretty deep, hard hike to our backcountry site in the Rockies, she stops and she looks at me and she says, like obviously I know like camping is like a human thing and like every kid, every like race should experience this. She's like, but for me, I see this as like a Black experience. She's like, I've only done this with like people that look like me, right? And I think that was powerful for her. And not necessarily saying that like, crossing lines of racial difference isn't important, but I think for her, the fact that she felt safe enough and culturally safe to say like, this is an experience that's within my culture. And now I feel comfortable enough to like share it with others, right? And I would equate that to one of our first kids, Darius. He graduated from Sam Houston. He's now a student at Texas Wesleyan. He started off in our program. I literally remember him setting up his first camping tent. And for the last 2 years, he's worked at a summer camp in Pennsylvania, right, every summer, and has helped lead trips there. And it's like, to be honest, it's like a super affluent camp. It is a predominantly white camp, to be honest, and it's so powerful for him. And I think it's so great because he's like, yeah, I feel comfortable enough to like share this experience that I know I'm comfortable like leading now with kids that across racial lines of difference. He's from the East Side, and he's like, yeah, I'm at this camp where like kids come from a totally different community than me, and he's sharing the outdoors with them as a leader. And so those are some of the powerful things that we think is like for some of our kids, that entry point of cultural safety is so important, where they could see themselves in these spaces, and then after that, they feel more comfortable to go to state parks. And I do think we really want very much encourage our kids like to go explore, go to other camps, go to things, and then also have this experience where they get to cook grits on the trail and do a lot of fun stuff too, that aligns to their cultural values at the home. So yeah, those are our two kind of powerful stories that we have.
Yeah, yeah. Being outside can be a Black experience.
Yeah,
But, yeah.
precisely, yes.
Yeah, yeah. I think one thing, like a common thread, of all, like, um, part of how kids grow is they have to challenge themselves, right? So, I mean, golf is, I've tried it. It's very challenging. I gave up, but I found other ways to challenge myself in life. But yeah, I have huge respect for it. It is an incredibly hard game, right? And trying to grow stuff in Texas is incredibly hard. And backpacking in the Rockies, I mean, it's steep, right? So these are all things, and but I think in order for kids to develop confidence, they have to do things that are hard, right? And they need supportive adults who are saying, I know this is hard, but I have faith in you. We can do this. And that's, and then I think the people you experience those challenges with, there's a bond that you form, right? Whether it's you're vanquishing bugs or right, or your slice, or right, or those hills. Yeah. So that's why these, yeah, and that's the overall theme of this post and this series is like there's great opportunities out there. We just really want to encourage families to get out there and try it. And maybe golf isn't your thing, but gardening is. Maybe gardening is not it. Maybe it's hiking. But San Antonio is full of opportunities to do stuff like this. So, well, I want to go around and give everybody a chance to share like how families can get in touch with your programs, how they can learn more. So let me start with Carrie, and I'm going to put the website link up on the screen too, and I'll read it out loud for the people listening on the podcast.
Okay.
Okay, so Carrie, how can people get in touch with First Tee Greater San Antonio?
Well, it's an exciting time because we're entering our fall season. So our programming is actually open right now. We start the third week of September 19th. So you can go to firstteesanantonio.org to find out more information about how to sign up. We're always looking for volunteers too. So if you love kids and you don't even have to know golf, but that's a positive too, you can come and sign up. But I just want to thank you, Inga, for having all of us. I mean, I learned 2 new organizations today that I wasn't formerly aware of. So thank you for bringing the community together and spreading the word and helping grow and shape the lives of the youth in San Antonio.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Okay. So First Tee. So that's great that fall programs are enrolling now. So David, I get you said that the fall vegetable garden is already you've formed the group and they're already planting. But how can families learn more about? I mean, there's lots of programs at Phil Hardberger Park, like not just the vegetable garden, and there will be another cycle in the spring, right?
Yes. So definitely visit our website, philhardbergerpark.org. We've got a lot of information about a bunch of our different programs on there. If you click our calendar, it has at least through September at the moment in our upcoming programs. But we will have a new children's vegetable garden season in the in the spring, and that will start registration in early January. So keep an eye out for that. And there's a place where you can also sign up to receive our calendar in your email once a month. There is another website I would like to mention. It's the Friends of San Antonio Natural Areas. And so that website is fosana.org, Fosana. And they're also a great resource to check out the different programs that we have in our natural areas. Maybe one that's closer to you than Harburger Park.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, okay. I'm going to get that up on screen real quick. Let's see how fast I can type it. Okay. So yeah, Friends of San Antonio Natural Areas. Is the Medina River area on the south side? That's part of that system, right? Oh, that's one of my favorite parks. That's a beautiful. I love walking. There's a trail that follows along the riverbanks. There's big cypress trees, and even in this drought, there's still water in there, right? And yeah, Walker Ranch Park, and then at Harburger Park, there's the old dairy barn, right, from the Walker Ranch is still there, right? So yeah, so it's like it's nature, but it's also history of how people have used it. Right, it used to be Buttermilk Hill, right? That's where the dairies were for that fed San Antonio. Well, great. Okay, well, let me put Alex, give Alex a chance to talk about Black Outside and how people can support Black Outside and how children of color can get involved.
Yeah, thank you so much. So yeah, I mean, obviously, you can support us, follow us. Our biggest avenue is like social media. So definitely, if you're on Instagram, that's where we post a lot of fun clips, reels, all things from our adventures. And so that's a great way to support our work. And just shout out our kids for doing amazing things. I mean, they go up to the Rockies, and it's cool when they say yeah, we're from San Antonio, and people always think they're from Austin, right? So what are the outdoor kids doing from San Antonio? So I'll say that we do. Our 2 year-round programs are our biggest first entry points that are coming up. If you do know any youth that's like has it could be a caregiver, cousin, parent, like anyone in their circle or they themselves that's been impacted by the incarceration system. Our Bloom Project is an amazing program that centers outdoor healing justice. They're actually going to be going surfing in the fall, and then they do like meditation, yoga, and really talk about navigating the challenges of the impacts of the incarceration system on their lives. So that's our like upcoming program that's really getting to ramp up. And then naturally, obviously, given our name, I always joke that like when kids come to us, it's kind of like signing up to go to a historically Black college, right? So definitely, we really try to center Black culture and some of the things we do, and the food, and even the music we play, and everything like that. But also ensure inclusion, that all our kids feel welcome and safe. And so we serve kids of almost every race at this point. But obviously, again, it's like signing your kid up to go to Texas Southern. It's definitely going to be a different cultural experience sometimes if they don't identify as Black or African American. So that's that.
Okay, we just got photobombed by my daughter.
Yeah, no, I was like, what's up?
Yeah, so Grandpa just brought Grandpa gave the kids a ride home. So that's a working mom thing. But yeah, Alex,
say one more quick thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Inga, just big shout out to you and all the work you're doing to support caregivers, families, and educators. Obviously, like the history of SA Charter Moms is like so important, and the discussion around like school access, who has equitable access to the information about high quality schools in our community. So I just want to uplift you and just appreciate you for like making this space, but also all the amazing work you're doing behind the scenes to support so many families and caregivers in our community. So thank you.
Oh, I really appreciate that, Alex. Like all of y'all are doing great work, and it really takes what families do. It takes like what the different schools and schools of choice are doing, and then also like programs around the community, so that like we want kids having outdoor experiences in school, right? Like so we highlight like schools that have their own vegetable gardens, and schools that do city explorations and stuff like that. So there's great work happening in schools. But we also want to highlight the options that families have, and also that these options are more affordable. I think that people realize, like Alex, you mentioned like your alumnus who works at a camp in Pennsylvania, but there's lots of really accessible, especially like Parks and Rec or First Tee. Y'all are not turning away people for affordability. So so like we want all of San Antonio, all the families to have access to great activities for their kids. Okay,
Absolutely.
well, thank you all. Yeah, thank you all so much for joining me. And I encourage everybody to like click through, to read the blog post, read about all these resources. Visit the websites, follow these folks on social media. Like donate or volunteer to support the work that they're doing. Because there's lots of amazing outdoor enrichment activities that kids in San Antonio can do.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
All right.
Inga.
Thanks,
Thank
y'all.
you,
Take
Inga.
care. Okay.